These turkey cookies make the cutest place-setting cookies, and they double as edible decorations for your fall tablescape. Hi, it's Hani here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this step-by-step cookie decorating tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the most colorful and festive little turkey cookies. And here's the fun twist. We are not going to use a turkey cookie cutter. So let's get started. To make this lovely shape, I used a maple leaf and a snowman cookie cutter. I also prepared my royal icing and I colored it with concentrated gel colors. You want to start by cutting out the shapes first, and then we're going to trim these so we can then stack them when they are decorated. So I'm going to trim the very bottom of the maple leaf and also very bottom of the snowman. You want to bake these separately, and then once baked, let them cool completely before you decorate them with royal icing. I'm starting by making my decorating guides using a template and edible marker, and now I'm going to divide the very top section into narrow areas here, and these are going to be individual feathers. I'm going to show you two different designs that you can create using this cookie, this shape that we are using today, this maple leaf shape. So I'm starting with 15-second consistency brown icing, outlining and decorating the base section, and then we're going to let it crust, and then we can work on the feathers. That's the very top section. That's going to be where the feathers are going to be positioned, and we're going to use 20-second consistency icing here, and I'm going to ice every other section. I'm going to let it crust and then come in and ice the remaining sections. The reason I'm not going to ice the adjacent section right after I'm doing this first section is because I want to achieve nice dimension in a design, and letting it crust will allow me to do that. What we are doing is wet on wet decorating. That's one of my favorite techniques to use in cookie decorating because it's so quick and it's really fun to use. So let me show you how to do it again. So I'm starting with the base. That's about 20-second consistency, and you can use any color you want. I am using light tan color here, and we're going to outline and fill this area. Immediately come in with a scribe tool, quickly smooth this area, and then pipe orange icing across. You want to pipe short lines, ideally from the edge to the edge, and then you can leave it as is, or you can come in with another color, and I'm going to use green and pipe straight lines between the orange lines. And then with a scribe tool, with just the tip of the scribe tool, you want to run it through the middle and then also through the sides, like so, down the sides all the way to the base. When piping those short lines, often what happens is we squeeze the piping bag a little too much and more icing comes out at the very beginning. So if you have that problem, don't worry about it, because when we run the scribe tool down the edge from the top to the bottom on the left and right edge, it's going to help smooth that out. So if there's a little bit of like a bulb shape at the beginning of your line, don't worry about it too much. So run the scribe tool through the middle and then also through the sides like this, and it's going to help kind of smooth that thick line a little bit, or that the beginning of the line, that little bulb or little dot that sometimes happens if you squeeze the piping bag too much in the beginning when you're kind of anchoring your icing. Now we have one more to do, and then we have to let it crust. I would say let it crust for about 10 minutes or so. While it's crusting, you can work on the remaining cookies. Now we can fill in the gaps. And because all the icing, all the feathers that we did in the first step are crusted, they're not dry, but they're crusted, so they're not going to blend in with this layer of icing. Alright, so we have to do one more, and then I'm going to show you a different color combination just to give you some ideas. So here I'm using blue for the base. It's actually a royal blue with touch of black in it, but when I say touch, it's a minuscule amount, tip of a toothpick. And this is obviously slightly sped up. You can see here I don't work this fast, I wish. But you can see you can create so many different color combinations. Here I'm using blue and orange, using same feathering method, marbling method with a scribe tool. Now again you have to let it crust and then you can finish the design. Now in this second design we're going to outline and fill the whole area with 15-second consistency icing. I'm using a light yellow. When using wet on wet royal icing decorating, it is important that you work fairly quickly. You don't want to, wait for the icing. You don't want to leave, let's say, if you once you ice the base, you have to do it right away. If you wait for 5 minutes, it's gonna start crusting and it's going to be difficult to do that wet on wet decorating technique. So make sure that you pipe these lines immediately after you do the base. That way these lines are gonna sink in. There should be about 15-second consistency also, like your base. And then you can use your scribe tool and run it through the icing. Try to clean the tip of the scribe tool after each time you run it through the icing. You can wipe it into a paper towel or a damp cloth. So this is a simplified version of the previous design. In this design, maybe you are familiar with this technique. What I'm doing here, I'm piping a zigzag line in the middle of each feather. And once you let it crust, you need to let this zigzag line crust, then you can pipe the icing over it. What this does, this helps mitigate cratering in your royal icing. If you're experiencing heavy cratering, I suggest that you use this technique. And again, we're going to ice every other section, but notice I didn't add any feathering, so you can also use this design as inspiration. You can just make solid colors. The feather can be made out of solid color. It doesn't have to have that marbling design. And now we're going to let this crust, and then we can finish by adding the remaining feathers. One more thing I wanted to mention about the colors. If you are looking for more earthy tones, I suggest that you mute the color. For example, orange, it usually comes out like super vibrant, right? If you're using concentrated gel color. So to mute it down slightly, you can add a little bit of brown to it. But when I say little, again, it's a minuscule amount, tip of a toothpick. Or if you have brown royal icing, I actually prefer to do that. Use brown royal icing instead of straight concentrated food color. And now we can work on a turkey head. So I'm going to show you again two designs. They're very similar. I'm using 20-second consistency icing for the base. And what we're going to do, we're going to create feather design, feathers or feather pattern using pretty popular polka dot technique. What that means, we're going to pipe polka dots into the base, and then we're going to actually cover those polka dots with the same color we used for the base. But we're not going to cover them completely. We're going to cover them just partially, leaving a small crescent on the bottom, like so. Maybe you've seen this technique on a beer bottle or any kind of design that involves maybe some bubbles or something like that. Or even mermaid, scales, fish. Now to make the eyes, I used white icing. You want to make 2 dots, then make 2 black dots in the middle of the white. And then for the reflection, you can pick up a small amount of white icing straight from a piping bag. Now as far as the head goes, I'm starting with the headband. We're going to let it crust for about 2 minutes or so, and then we can come back with the black icing and you can make the top and the brim. Now to make the head, you can use 20-second consistency royal icing, or you can get away with 15-second consistency if you don't pile it up too much. If you don't add too much icing into these narrow areas, it's not going to crater. Otherwise, you are risking cratering because these are very narrow sections. So you can utilize that zigzag line technique in the middle, that skeleton or support beam in the middle, and let it crust, and then pipe icing over it if you are using slightly runnier icing or if you are experiencing heavy cratering. I'm going to let this crust, and then we can add the beak using 20-second consistency orange icing. Let that crust again before adding red wattle. And to finish this design, I decided to add a buckle at the very top using orange icing, and also we're going to outline the head with black icing. And this can be 20-second consistency, or if you'd like, you can make it slightly thicker to about piping consistency. But I find that for these small designs, 20-second consistency works really well. And this is the second design. It's slightly different than the first one, but I wanted to share it with you in case you prefer this one over the first one. So starting with the same technique we used before for the feathers, polka dot technique, starting with dark brown polka dots and then partially covering them with the base layer icing. That's the tan icing. And immediately I'm going to switch to brown icing, and I'm going to pipe the very top like so, slightly overlapping the bottom section. And then while the brown icing is wet, we can make the eyes just like we did before using white icing. So you're gonna pipe 2 white dots, then pipe black dot in the middle, and then tiny little dots on the for the reflection. You want to add those just on the edge of black icing. So you'll see it here in a second. So you're going to add that dot on the edge of black, and then you can finish making the head. We're going to let all the cookies dry for it's going to take about 8 to 12 hours, and then we can add additional decorations on the base cookie. And I'm adding gold nonpareils and also sanding sugar. So you're going to pipe brown royal icing, about piping consistency around there. It can be piping to 20-second consistency. And then you can either dip it in sanding sugar, you can turn it around, but I actually prefer dusting it with sanding sugar like this. And then we can assemble the cookies. This is exciting because I love how these turned out. I think my favorite part is that you can make these in a variety of colors. And when they are glued together, they make a base that is a little over 1/2 inch thick, so you can actually prop these up and they will stand on their own. Like this. Isn't that pretty? I love how these turned out. I already made some turkey cookies in the past, so if you missed those tutorials, they're available here on my YouTube channel and also on my blog. If you are more of a buttercream person, you can make buttercream turkey cookies. Super easy and really delicious. Full recipe for those you can find on the blog, and these are the cookies I'm talking about. Or if you are looking for another 3D cookie idea with brush embroidery and some grass, you can find those also on the blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.